Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up. Packers lose to the Eagles 22-10. Gross, ugly, despicable. I don't know if I should use the word embarrassing, but it was pretty damn close to that for the Packers as they lose to Philadelphia 22-10. It is the instant reaction video. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already. We bounce around on the instant reaction videos. We go all over the map. It's not, there's no calculated formula to this. It's just right after the game goes final, we hop on, do a video. I will start with Green Bay's defense. I want to give a hat tip to Jeff Hafley's group. I thought they were phenomenal. I thought they were really good. We got some of the stats here. A.J. Brown, 1 catch, 10 yards, 3 targets. They showed him reading a book on the sideline. And, Kevin Burkhardt is an incredible play-by-play announcer for Fox. And when they showed A.J. Brown reading the book on the sideline on the bench in the second half, he was like, man, look at A.J. Brown, cool, calm, and collected. And I was like, no, I think he's indirectly sending a message that he's pissed off that he's not getting thrown the ball. 3 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards. Devonta Smith, 4 catches, 55 yards on 4 targets. Like those 2 top receivers for Philly that have taken the lid off many defenses this year didn't do a whole hell of a lot. And Saquon did what he does, 25 carries, 119 yards, almost ripped off the big one at the end, but laid down so they could kneel it out. But they were hard-earned yards for Saquon. His longest rush of the night was that last one for 17 yards. I thought the defense was put, I'm not even going to say I thought. I know the defense was put in a lot of not so advantageous positions in that game, and to give up only 22 points to the Eagles and to show up the way they did. They got a couple of sacks to Jalen Hurts. They kept him contained within the pocket. He had 6 carries for 36 yards, and Saquon's always going to get his. He just is. He's that good of a running back. Saquon Barkley's freaking incredible. I still thought the defense for Green Bay was just top tier. I thought they were really that good for the Packers. And you look at how the game started, Keyshawn Nixon doesn't know what a touchback is. Apparently, he's allergic to them. Saw it throughout the game. Opening kickoff, he fumbles it, and we'll get to that down the road, but the defense is instantly backed up, and they give up a touchdown. And on that touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to Jahan Dotson, he had all day to throw. Hafley rushed 4, and immediately I started thinking, if he's really going to rush 4 all day, Green Bay has no shot. They have absolutely no shot. And so I was concerned after seeing that first drive. Again, the defense is pinned. At worst, you're probably giving up 3 points unless something crazy happens. They give up the 7. They rush 4. Hurts had like 7 seconds to throw the ball. He was just bouncing in the pocket till Dotson came open in the back of the end zone. And I had a worry that, man, you got to go down swinging if you're Jeff Hafley in this defense. And after that, he brought pressure. Hafley called and delivered a hell of a game, and the players executed on defense. Outside the personal foul calls in the fourth quarter, we'll get to that down the road too. So I do want to start, before we get into some of the not so good, because there was a lot of that for the Packers, I thought the defense was really good. And my mind kind of wanders because, like, Jalen Hurts was not good in this game. Like, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't what we know Jalen Hurts can be. And again, I'm waffling with, was that rust? The guy missed nearly 3 weeks. He's coming back from a concussion. I was actually surprised at how many times he did take off and run, given that he was coming back from a concussion. He was pretty admirable in that respect, like inviting contact on some of those runs. And so I was wondering, like, is it a little bit of rust with Jalen Hurts, or is it the Packers from the very first play when they fumble the opening kickoff are shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, that the Eagles and Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator for Philadelphia, are thinking, we don't need to do too much. We don't really need to get crazy because these guys are just going to keep screwing up. And so I try to balance that out, because like Jalen Hurts, that was not no one's going to look back at the game and be like, wow, Jalen Hurts was incredible. Like, Jalen Hurts was jaw-dropping good. Like, that's not the takeaway. I thought Green Bay's defense played so damn well. But again, I'm trying to balance it, I guess, in my mind, like how much of that was Philadelphia watching Green Bay just trip over themselves on repeat in a variety of different ways, and maybe Philadelphia thinking, we're probably good here. Let's keep this shit bottled up, right? We don't need to come out here and razzle dazzle. And there was a 3rd and 1 at near midfield in the second half, and they did a fake quarterback sneak with Hurts, and it was a play-action pass, and they had Green Bay beat, and he threw it overshot into the side of A.J. Brown, who was open. That was about all the trickery we saw from Philadelphia. They just didn't need to, because Green Bay wasn't able to manufacture hardly anything offensively. So it's more frustrating from that perspective, like knowing Green Bay had opportunities in this game and could not get out of its own way. They just could not. One thing I don't want to hear, I know if I go on Twitter, I'm going to see it at some point, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, down the road. People are going to bring it up. Green Bay, youngest team in the NFL. It's a youth movement. Like, hey, be patient. This is the youngest team in the National Football League. And I said this in a video earlier this week. I don't want to hear a single person bring it up after this game either. Keyshawn Nixon's a 6-year veteran. Keyshawn Nixon is a 6-year NFL vet. Fumbled the opening kickoff of the game, which immediately takes all the air out of the balloon. All of it, especially since Philly punched it in for a touchdown. They go up 7-0 in the blink of an eye before people can even sit down and relax. And he's a 6-year vet. And in the fourth quarter, it would have been a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and Keyshawn Nixon gets called for a personal foul for a little extra shove on Saquon Barkley on the sidelines. That's a 6-year vet. So you're saying, Green Bay's young, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to have things happen. It's the youngest team in the NFL. Don't want to hear it. Brandon McManus is an 11-year NFL veteran, had never missed a postseason field goal before this one. Green Bay's down 10-0, scratch and claw, and trying to piece something together, trying to get the goose egg off their side of the scoreboard. McManus duck snorts a 38-yard field goal, his first ever miss in the postseason. That's an 11-year NFL vet. So these aren't mistakes where it's like rookie, second-year guys. Surely there were moments of that with some of the young guys. But for anyone who's pointing back at this and saying, hey, you got to remember Green Bay's the youngest team, I don't care. I don't, because there were veterans that made plenty of mistakes in this game too. Just don't give me the youth movement shit after this game, because I can't hear it out. I can't. I recognize it. I understand it. Green Bay didn't lose this game because they were the youngest team in the NFL. Point blank matter of fact. And I've said to you guys, if you want to bring up the Green Bay as the youngest team in the NFL thing as a crutch, which irritates me, and some people are doing that, which fine, you have every right to. It's just I'm not hearing it out. Philadelphia's got the youngest defense in the NFL by average age. And they balled out this year. Number 1 in total defense, number 3 in scoring defense. Just held Green Bay to 10 points in a playoff game. And I know Green Bay came kind of limping in a little bit. Christian Watson's gone. They had plenty of injuries in this game as well. That's not why they lost either. But Green Bay's offense, when it's good, it's humming. And Philadelphia just, for the most part, completely took them out of their game. It looked like the Eagles' defense was playing on a different surface. It looked like they were running downhill the entire night. And Green Bay's offense was just kind of like treading water or running through mud or getting caught in quicksand. Whatever phrasing analogy you want to use. In Philadelphia's defense, you tip your cap to Vic Fangio and them. They were flying around. It literally looked like they were playing on a different surface, or they were playing with, different shoes that like they were so fast flying around, and they played with a confidence that if you're going to talk youth movement for the Packers, youngest team in the NFL, youngest defense in the NFL, sure as hell didn't look like it with the amount of confidence they were playing with. So I don't want to hear that as a crutch for Green Bay. It is Mitch. I am on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciate all the support. 22-10, season's over. It has sunk in a little bit for me, but I'll be more mad later on tonight. I'll be more mad tomorrow when you realize there's not a next week on the schedule. That's how it usually is for me. Like it's almost like an initial shock. Like I'm pissed. I'm mad. I might not be fully coming out right now. It will later on when it really settles in. When I go to look at the playoff matchups next week and I don't see the Packers on the docket, that's when it sinks in for me. So this is almost like just the initial wave, and then the big tidal waves come down the road a little bit. The way they went out was pretty disgraceful. Again, I don't know if I want to use the word embarrassing, but it was pretty damn close. And I'll say this too. I want to button back to the youth. The Packers are the youngest team in the NFL thing. If you want to point at one thing with youth affecting them in this game, I'll give you left guard. I'll give you left guard for all those people out there. Because Elton Jenkins is a two-time Pro Bowler? Elton Jenkins is an all-pro caliber left tackle. He goes out early in the game. Green Bay puts in Travis Glover, a rookie, and he got torched. Travis Glover got called for 3 penalties in the first half. He got benched. Telfort comes in. Telfort gets called for 2 penalties. Green Bay's left guards had 5 combined penalties after Elton Jenkins left the game. And if you want to talk about an underappreciated position when you have a good group, it's the offensive line. Josh Jacobs is an incredible running back. He'll be the first to tell you he's nothing without the O-line paving holes. And that offensive line for Green Bay is so, so good this year. Jordan Love hardly gets sacked. Josh Jacobs has room to run all day. Now, he has to find those holes. He has to navigate. And he did that all season long for the Packers. But, man, there may be no, and it sucks, but there may be no better time to have an appreciation for an offensive lineman than when they get hurt and the backups come in and they suck. And that's what we saw with Green Bay's left guards. Elton goes down early. 5 combined penalties. Telfort and Glover. Just absolutely disgusting. And last drive of the first half. Green Bay's trying to get points up. They're down 10-0. First down was a check down to Josh Jacobs. Nope. Holding on Glover. 1st and 20 now. Love completes a 20-yard pass to Jaden Reed. Moves the sticks. 21-yard pass on 1st and 20. 1st and 10 again. You reset. Josh Jacobs runs for 5 yards. Hard earned. Nope. Holding on Glover. Again. 1st and 20. They yanked him right then. Telfort comes in. 2 penalties. Not on that drive, but throughout the rest of the game. It just, if you want to use the youngest team in the NFL thing, I'll give it to you at left guard. We can compromise, right? I'm level-headed. I'm willing to negotiate, and so we can compromise on that because the left guard play was absolutely despicable once Elton Jenkins went down. And, Glover didn't expect to play in the playoffs. And Telfort, if he's third in line on the depth chart, he sure as hell didn't expect to play. Elton Jenkins is a pretty reliable left guard. Goes down early, too. And if you're the quarterback, Jordan Love, and we'll get to his play, too, it's in the back of your mind. Like, my backup left guard's in. Later on, Josh Myers got hurt. Your backup center's in. Like, it's in your mind. Like, hey, I'm probably not going to have the normal protection I have because these guys are bad. Like, they can be good. They can be serviceable, but they are backups for a reason because neither of those reserves are Elton Jenkins. Same can be said at center with Josh Myers. So, yeah, that part was just gross. Mitch M on YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't already. I was certainly wrong about certain aspects of this game. One thing I said was Green Bay had to start fast, and they did quite literally the exact opposite. Like, literally the exact opposite. Fumbling the opening kickoff, Philly punches it in for 7. Green Bay was second in first quarter points this year, and Philadelphia was 25th. And so I thought, man, if you can get off to a quick start, it's going to put the pressure on them. The pressure's already on the Eagles. A lot of that pressure was alleviated after Green Bay fumbled the opening kickoff of the game, and Philly had 7 points right out of the chute. And so I was wrong about aspects of this game, but I have to point this out because I brought it up ad nauseum over and over and over again in the lead up to this game. I think I put out 3 videos to preview this matchup, and if you go back and watch, I said it in all 3 of them. I don't know, and again, I was wrong about some aspects of this game. I thought Green Bay would have to have arguably its sharpest performance to win and try to force a couple of turnovers. They didn't force any. They lost the turnover battle 4-0. But I don't know why some people, and I saw this floated out by quite a few, some people thought a team in Green Bay that continually couldn't get out of its own way this year, continually, especially in big games, thought that would all of a sudden magically disappear and go away in the postseason against any team, let alone the Philadelphia Eagles. There were some people saying like, hey, you know what? Those hiccups can be cleaned up. They can be addressed. It's like, this is the playoffs. This isn't week 2 going into week 3 where you're like, hey, we can figure some of this out. I said way back before the second matchup against the Lions, when Green Bay lost 34-31 in Detroit, I said in the lead up to that game, I listened to Matt LaFleur have a presser, and he had said, like, we got to clean things up. We got to clean things up. And I said, this is not a shot at LaFleur in any sense of the imagination. But I said in a video to you guys and gals, I said, at some point, isn't that just who you are? Because that Detroit game was like week 14, 15, whenever it was. Like, if you go 14, 15 weeks into the season and you continually have pre-snap penalties, you continue to have these gaffes, you're losing a lot of the turnover battles, which Green Bay typically doesn't do. You had a ton of takeaways in the first half of the season, and that dipped off. And then thankfully Love's interceptions went down. But there was sort of like a wrestling match with the turnover battle. Dropped passes were an issue for a lot of the year. A lot of the year. I won't say specific names. And so you you hear, and that's what Matt LaFleur has to say, right? Like, we're going to clean it up. We'll get it figured out. But 14, 15 weeks in, that's your identity. Like, that's who you are. A good team, not a great team. A good team that in a lot of losses, you can point directly at the Packers and be like, yeah, they lost this game, but they lost it themselves. They did. This game against Philadelphia was a perfect picture of that. And so I think maybe some of it was like hopeless optimism, but there were a lot of people who thought, hey, Green Bay's, the playoffs, you just add a layer of focus. Like, they'll figure it out for the postseason. I don't know, man. I was worried about all these issues coming into it. And then they fumbled I brought it up again, but they fumbled the opening kickoff. They had 2 personal foul penalties in the fourth quarter. Special teams was a complete nightmare. And so I didn't think it would go away. I thought they would have to just try to sweep as much of it under the rug to try to win a game in the playoffs. Because I said almost word for word, I could see them beating Philadelphia. Could I see them putting it together and having a fairly clean sheet 3 straight times on the road in the playoffs? That's where I thought you're asking for a whole hell of a lot. And I think most people knew that. But yeah, I thought, and it wasn't a Philly thing. No matter who Green Bay played in the first round, I'd say Green Bay's a good enough team to win a game in the playoffs. Are they good enough? Can they get out of their own way 3 straight times on the road? Probably not. And I mean, this game was a disaster. You know, we're used to Packers postseason losses where the defense gives up a ton of yards, a good amount of points, and the Packers offense is hanging shot for shot. And then, you know, it's a couple of little minute things that make the difference in a loss for the Packers in the postseason. This team was just mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And so it probably was just hopeless optimism. I had little to no faith they'd be able to string it together for 3 straight games on the road and put together clean sheets because we had the sample size. It was not 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season. It was a 17-game stretch. And it wasn't like, oh, wow, they played 3 or 4 really, really good games in a row. Even in their wins a lot of the times, outside of like Seattle and Arizona, outside of those 2 wins, it's a slop fest a lot of the time for Green Bay. I mean, I guess even if you go back to the games where they didn't have love, I thought it was pretty clean against Indianapolis and Tennessee, but too many times, and it's not one area. It's a broad issue for the Packers because there's so many subcategories. Dropped passes, turnovers, pre-snap penalties, clock management issue. Like, there's so many subcategories within it. It's not just one area. There's tentacles to it. And so I didn't, and almost all of them popped up. I don't remember really any drop passes, but almost all of them popped up in this game for the Packers in one way or another. It just, I don't know. But I credit the defense because Eagles score right away on a short field, and then Green Bay punts it right back to them. I was thinking this is going to be 14-0 quick. And Javon Bullard made an incredible tackle on a swing pass to Saquon Barkley in the open field on the far sideline on a 3rd down, and Green Bay forced a punt. And I was like, okay. I just thought it could have gotten out of hand quickly, and Green Bay's defense weathered the storm. They really did. I thought they weathered the storm, and they did a very, very, very good job of that early on. They gave the offense like every opportunity to just show up, and the offense couldn't. And part of that, you just say, hey, the Eagles' defense is really damn good. Part of it is Green Bay's offense. Not the offense. Green Bay's passing game has not been good down the stretch, and it reared its ugly head in this one. It really reared its ugly head in this one. And if you want to say, hey, they didn't have Watson, that's fine. He's a big part of it. If you want to say Romeo Doubs went out midway through or whenever that was, and then Jaden Reed went out shortly, I get that. You know, they didn't have their top weapons, one of them for the whole game and a couple of them for a lot of the game. But this wasn't a passing offense coming into the postseason playing, you know, with its hair on fire. That was torching defenses left and right. It was a passing offense that was like, what's going on? Because Love's interceptions, he's not throwing any of them. But we're not seeing the explosives. We're not seeing the shot plays that we've become accustomed to seeing with the Packers. You know, I think they had the 5th most explosive plays this season. You know, that's running plays and passing plays combined. But they had a hell of a lot more in the first half of the season than the second half of the season. And we did not see the passing game click Last year, it was the first half that was like, oh, is this going to be bad? And then the second half, Jordan Love, the passing game, Matt LaFleur, it was perfect harmony. And they rolled into the playoffs with a lot of confidence, a lot of good juju. And they torched the Dallas Cowboys. And I know Love had the interception against San Francisco in the divisional round last year, but he had a pretty good game against the 49ers and a pretty vaunted defense before that interception at the end. This year, it was good to start out, despite Love missing a couple of games and Love playing injured. And it just teetered off down the street. There was just, you didn't see the cohesion with the passing game. And I'm sure there will be plenty of questions about that in the offseason, because there were many head-scratching moments the last few weeks with the passing game. But again, if you want one good takeaway, Green Bay, I think, has a really damn good defensive coordinator in Jeff Hafley. And selfishly, I hope he, at least this go-around, does not get any head coaching interviews, because I would love to see him stay in Green Bay. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Instant reaction. Packers are done. They're toast. They're cooked. 22-10. They lose to Philadelphia. Season's over. Yeah, it sucks. It should have been 3-3 at halftime. Think about it. Should have been 3-3 at halftime. You don't fumble the opening kickoff. You don't give up 7 right away. Maybe you put something together. Philadelphia, it was 10-0 at halftime. You take away that touchdown on the opening kickoff fumble, which I brought up a million times. I'm going to keep bringing it up because it pisses me off. And you give Elliott his field goal, and you give McManus a 38-yard chip shot he missed. I couldn't believe it. It should have been 3-3 at halftime. Like, quite literally should have been 3-3. Instead, it's 10-0, and Philly gets the ball. I'll say this, too. Another hat tip to the defense. 10-0 at halftime, and you're squirming. You know, Love's got 2 interceptions in the first half. The first one was a 50-50 deep shot to Wicks. Underthrew it a little bit. Just an incredible play by Slay. I mean, one of those plays where you're wondering, how is Slay a corner, not a wide receiver? Got his head around. Great play by him for the interception. The second one was alarming. I mean, I don't know what Love was looking at. I don't know what the read was. End of the first half, 10-0. You're trying to get into field goal range. He throws it right to, was it Bond? I mean, just throws it right to him. There's no Packer in the vicinity. Just boom. So that one was alarming. And then the defense stepped up again. Philadelphia short field. They don't even get 3 out of that. I thought coming out of halftime, just based off vibes, and it wasn't this defense, I always factor in past history, even though it's Jeff Hafley's first season. It seems like there's been moments coming out of halftime where it's like, okay, Green Bay needs to just get a stop, and then the offense will get rolling, and they give up points. I'll have to go back and actually look at box scores to see if I can validate myself for that. As good as the defense played in the first 30 minutes, I was convinced that they were going to give up a touchdown, and it was going to be 17-0. And instead, they came out and got another stop in the third quarter to start things. Hafley just... they lost, so I can't call it a masterpiece, but that was a beautifully executed blueprint by the defense almost all night. But the cherry on top of what was already a horrendous first half for the offense was Love's second interception, which defied logic and made absolutely no sense. It made no sense. And then, the only bad with the defense were the 2 personal foul calls. The one on Nixon was crazy to me. Like that, the ref stepping in and making it would have been 3rd and 4, and you're still in the game. It was 16-10 at the time, and then it's curtains. Saquon's awesome. He's a great running back. He deserves an Emmy, or at least a nomination, because he did a good job of selling both personal foul calls. Slayton's was a little more egregious, where it's like, what are you doing? But both of the first one with Nixon certainly should not have been called in a playoff game in a big moment where it would have been 3rd down, and instead it's nope, 1st down, automatic 15 yards. Now they're deeper into enemy territory. But Saquon, you can't. I mean, the dude's great. 25 carries, 119 yards. And then we bounce around instant reaction on this. We're all over the map. I hinted at special teams. I mean, just missed 38-yard field goal for the special teams. You muffed a punt that thankfully went out of bounds, but it looked like it hit a Philly guy first. And then on a kickoff in the 4th quarter where Keyshawn Nixon's been running everything out, and he's getting tackled right around the 20-yard line every single time, instead of just taking the touchback for a 30 at the 30, because these were like a yard or 2 deep into the end zone. Late in the 4th quarter, there's a kickoff that bounces at like the 1-inch line and then into the end zone, so Green Bay gets it at the 20 instead of the 30. Like, special teams... Fumble the kickoff, miss 38-yard field goal, muff a punt that goes out of bounds, then the kickoff that bounces at the 1-yard line like that. That was a disaster class by the special teams. That I guess kick coverage was good, but Green Bay only kicked it off a couple of times because they only scored 10 points. Punt coverage was good on Cooper DeJean, who's pretty electric, the rookie out of Iowa. I don't know. Outside of that, what else do you say about special teams? It was a nightmare. A nightmarish performance, if that's a word. I'm going to use it anyways. By Rich Bisaccia's group. That was bad. That was bad. And oftentimes it's like, if special teams isn't really standing out, it's probably, it's neutral, right? It's not a net negative. It's not a net positive. If special teams isn't popping up in a big playoff game, you probably are, like, you're not going to win a lot, but, like, you're good. You're good. If you're popping up repeatedly, field goal unit, punt return unit, kickoff unit, and it's all bad, that's how you lose games. I'm not going to put it all in the special teams, but the offense was horrible outside of Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs showed up. I thought Tucker Kraft showed up, especially in the run blocking game. I thought Jaden Reed showed up before he left with an injury. Outside, Love wasn't good. Oh, my gosh. Love was not good. 20 of 33, 212, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And again, 2 of the interceptions, one's a prayer at the end of the game. Under 2 minutes, you need a quick score. You just threw it up into triple coverage. The one by Slay was just a great play. I'm not giving Love excuses because the other interception that I told you about right before half was horrendous. It was terrible. But, Love was not good. Josh Jacobs, that run he had at the end of the third quarter down to the 1 yard line, that was a grown man run. That was was that Josh Jacobs' first ever playoff game? Did he have one with the Raiders? I don't remember, but what a frickin' find in the offseason by Goody to get Josh Jacobs, because he showed up. I'll have to go back and watch. I thought Zach Tom struggled at right tackle, and he's a brick wall. That's an all-pro caliber player. Just offense didn't show up. Special teams was just laughable. Defense was great. And when only one of those 3 phases are great and the other 2 aren't good or average, they're pretty damn bad, you're not going to win many football games. You just aren't. And Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Instant reaction. LaFleur says in his press conferences almost every time they lose, again, I don't blame him for it. He says it's a thin margin. The margins are razor thin is his expression. And he talks about how it's just a couple of small things that can make a difference between winning and losing. And a lot of people take that as coach speak, especially after losses. It popped up in this game. It popped up in this game more than once. You're down 19-10, but you still feel like you have a chance, right? It's 19-10. There's like 6 minutes left. It's 4th down and 3. You're at like your own 45, somewhere around there. And you have Malik Heath for an easy out route. Was the pass perfect by Love? No. Does Romeo Doubs make that catch? Yes. Yeah, does Christian Watson make that catch? Yes. Love throws it to Heath, who just didn't have a sense of the sidelines on a 4th and 3, and his heel ends up out of bounds. Just barely out of bounds, but out of bounds. Game of inches. Margins, razor thin, as LaFleur likes to say. Turnover on downs, and then it's over. 19-10, 6 minutes left. You have all 3 timeouts, but they're taking over with great field position. It's over. Mentioned the kickoff that bounced at the 1-inch line and then into the end zone, or the 1.5 yard line, I should say. That's 10 yards of field position in the second half in a one-score game. Instead of getting it at the 30, you get it at the 20. That stuff matters. Josh Jacobs fumbles inside the 10 on a 4-yard run. It would have been 2nd and goal around the 6, I believe. Fumbles it. They show the replay. His elbow is clearly down. I don't know why they did not do the expedited review, but they didn't. And instead of it being 2nd and goal at the 6, the ball bounced back 4 yards to the 10. There's no review, and it's 2nd and goal, and Green Bay goes incomplete pass, field goal to make it 10-3. Instead of having the playbook more open at the 6-yard line on 2nd and goal, it's 2nd and 10. Typically, those are obvious passing downs for most teams. And Green Bay went incomplete pass. So you talk about some of those razor-thin margins. It popped up in this game a few times like it does in every other game, but they all went heavily against Green Bay. And then we'll finish with this, too. Injuries. I mean, Elton Jenkins, brutal. Josh Myers. Here's the big one. Josh Myers is entering a free agency year, and I'm not going to speculate on the injury, but he got carted off. He couldn't even walk off the field. Sure as hell didn't look good. And it came when the game was over. I mean, I'm not faulting Myers for still being in the game, but it was 22-10 with like 2:30 left, 2:40 left, whatever it was. And it looked like a pretty bad injury. And then Dobbs, likely his 2nd concussion of the season, even with the Guardian cap on, and Jaden Reed got hurt. And so, Josh Myers, I feel for all those guys, right? The head injuries are scary with Romeo Dobbs, his second one this year. Elton Jenkins couldn't return. Jaden Reed couldn't return. But Josh Myers, who's in a contract year, if that's as bad as it looked, you talk about the worst timing. You're down 22-10 there's no good time to get a devastating injury in a football game, right? But you're down 22-10, your season's pretty much over unless an absolute miracle happens and you get hurt with less than 3 minutes to go in a contract year. I feel for all those guys, but Josh Myers, man, especially, that sucks. That sucks. And, Slayton's going to be a free agent, and he had a dumb personal foul call that we talked about in the fourth quarter. They're not going to hang that over his head or have the dark cloud over his head for it, but certainly doesn't bode well, if Green Bay wants to bring it up in negotiations, if they have intentions to bring Slayton back. So, I don't know. Just all the issues that Green Bay's had this year seem to pop up in this one, or most of them. And you lost. Could not beat a really, really good team this year. Couldn't do it. 0-2 against the Eagles, 0-2 against the Lions, 0-2 against the Vikings. Couldn't beat a really, really good team. Now you're in the offseason. We'll have plenty more videos. I might do some live play-by-play reaction for other playoff games. Maybe the one on Monday night, depending on when you watch this, between the Vikings and the Rams. But yeah, we'll still have plenty of content churning out even in the offseason. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Always appreciate all the support. Please click the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.